Jarvis Christian University is celebrating its 111th Founders Homecoming Week. As part of the celebrations, students heard from an 8-time Grammy Award-winning entertainment executive, an actor, and finance experts who spoke about empowerment. KLTV's Soraya Bonds has more.
Unfortunately, many more of you were probably impacted and controlled or pressured and influenced by so much around you. How much are you really actually being yourself?
Dr. Rucker currently stars in the BET drama series The Black Hamptons and began his acting career on daytime soap operas. He spoke to students about finding out who you truly are and not being afraid to be the best version of yourself.
What I ended up having was a lot of information about, who I really am, or that's always changing too. Who I likely truly am.
8-time Grammy Award-winning entertainment executive Amir Winden organized the event. Winden met the president of Jarvis Christian University, Lester Newman, on a plane in 2019 and related to his mission of helping the HBCU gain national recognition.
Jarvis is an amazing institution, and I think we need to have more national coverage where we have national partners like Wells Fargo come and do what they do.
Dewey Norwood is the senior lead diversity and inclusion consultant at Wells Fargo.
Really excited to be bringing in amazing leaders from our banking industry from within Wells Fargo, and also national celebrities to actually spotlight and talk to the students about everything from career pathways to developing and building their own brand.
Wells Fargo representatives spoke to students about financial principles that could help students throughout their lifetime, such as building credit and saving.
It is one area that we struggle in for sure. We're and not to discredit our parents and the generations before me, but their knowledge of finance was limited.
Junior Javier Law tells what he took away from the event.
I got to talk to these individuals to tell us that everything is possible, nothing is too far out of reach.
Soraya Bonds, KLTV 7 News.
3 scholarships sponsored by Wells Fargo will be awarded to 3 students who upload the best selfie video to the Big Homecoming website next week. So the best of luck. Bring your A game, everybody. Bring your A game.
That's right.